You searched for more. You wanted to become the best version of yourself. Your search is over, and the technology finally exists. To go beyond limits. Your time has come. Unleash your potential. AQ. Adaptive intelligence. Adaptive intelligence. You searched for more. You wanted to become the best version of yourself. Your search is over, and the technology finally exists. To go beyond limits. Your time has come. Unleash your potential. AQ. Adaptive intelligence. adaptive
intelligence.
You searched for more. You wanted to become the best version of yourself. Your search is
Over.
and the
Technology
finally
exists.
to go.
Beyond limits.
Your time has come. Unleash your
Potential.
AQ.
Adaptive intelligence.
productive?
intelligent,
You searched for more. You wanted to become the best version of yourself. Your search is
over,
and the
technology
finally.
exists,
To go,
behind limit,
your time has come. Unleash your
potential,
AQ.
adaptive intelligence.
Muda. Estás muda, Flor. Okay, estamos vivos. Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for coming today. We're going to go ahead and actually start promptly on time. So we're going to go ahead and watch Brain Stress Equals Disease with Dr. Clint Steele. Enjoy the show. Bueno, Flor, pues, gracias. All right, we can all mute our mics and our videos. So hello everyone and welcome to AQ Adaptive Intelligence's Thinking Thursdays. Today we have an amazing guest. His name is Dr. Clint Steele, and he is a doctor of chiropractic, and he's been serving for quite some time as well. So he's been doing chiropractic for quite some time now, and he teaches that you can heal yourself through the power of your neurology, through the power of the human nervous system. So in order to achieve optimal human health, we need to make sure that the vertebrae in our spine are properly aligned. Otherwise, it will impede on our brain function. So he uses quite a bit of technology to verify that what he's trying to do is actually working. One of the things that he uses is beyond, x-rays and typical things that most chiropractors use. He uses a special type of biometric device called the NeuroInfinity. And I've actually researched NeuroInfinity a lot and even considered buying it about a year ago. I settled with the Muse, but I do like NeuroInfinity as well. So Dr. Clint has started many things within chiropractic, one of them being a True Chiro, which the whole point of True Chiro is to share the truth of chiropractic and changing the world's health one family at a time. That's the catchphrase, one family at a time, or one person at a time as well. He started Leading Edge Chiropractic. That's where he practices. He's really good about helping people, challenging them to transform, and he has his own 30-day challenge to transform people's health and life. So we're very like-minded in that as well. He is an avid traveler and a lover of hockey. That was also part of my childhood. I love hockey as well. And so today we're going to talk to you about how your brain stress equals disease. So we're going to talk about neurology. We're going to talk about optimizing the human nervous system. We're going to talk about optimizing your health so that you can optimize your life. Without further ado, I will be bringing to you here, now, and live for Thinking Thursdays, Dr. Clint Steele. Dr. Clint, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in just delving deeper into neurology, deeper into the human mind, how to make it function better, and why that matters to everybody's life.
Well, first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time and for the introduction. I've been a chiropractor since 1993. So 27 years I've been a chiropractor. For the first 17 years, basically saw neck and low back pain, which is what most people think chiropractic is. Unfortunately, it's wrong, and I knew better, but I couldn't figure out a way to educate that to my following. Chiropractic was about so much more than neck and low back pain. So after 17 years, I quit. I said, I'm done. I just knew that there was so much more, but I was frustrated. I had a full head of hair when I started practice. I was stressed and burnt out. So I got out. Tried to change the world in another way, performing acts of kindness. We ended up setting a goal of performing 1 million acts of kindness in 1 year. We ended up hitting 2.8 million acts of kindness in 1 year. What we did was we went out and we started here in Maine. I live in Maine. And so we partnered with McDonald's of Maine to begin with. They gave us 1,000 vouchers for free coffee at McDonald's. And so a group of us, we had about 10 of us, we went to downtown Portland, which is a city of about 60, 70,000 people. And we'd stand on the corners. And instead of holding a sign that says, need money, can you help, something like that, we would hold signs that said something like, have a great day, enjoy a coffee on us, smile, we just bought you a coffee, stuff like that. And we'd start handing these out to people. And it was crazy how many people would not look at us. They wouldn't engage with us because they thought that we were asking for something. Instead, we were giving something, right? They listened to us, it clicked, and their eyes got big and they get a big, huge smile on their face. And they're like, wow, that's awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much. And so that was the start. That was the very first day we did that. And then what happened is we just had, it just kind of snowballed. We had people from all over the United States initially joining us. And then we had people from all over the world. We have people as far as Africa and Australia joining us, and they would perform acts of kindness on our behalf. And we kept tabs. We probably had more than 2.8 million, but we know for sure it was at least 2.8 million acts of kindness. And so that was an amazing year. It was in honor of my dad, he was big into performing acts of kindness when he was alive. He died when I was 25 years old. But I grew up where he would, he'd go out. Like one of the things that we used to do was, I grew up in Colorado, and so during the winters, we'd go out in the Jeep and we would find in a snowstorm people that were stuck or off the side of the road, and we'd go out and we'd pull them out. We'd hook them up to the Jeep and pull them out. So we were always doing the acts of kindness like that. So it was pretty cool in honor of my dad.
So yeah, I love that you do acts of kindness. I'm a big advocate of philanthropy as well. That's actually my passion in life. Like the reason why I got into healing is so that I can give back, especially to those who have nothing, right? Especially to those who don't have health. Tell us a little bit about how you were able to transition from acts of kindness to now acts of helping human beings achieve their greatest potential.
So what happened after that year finished, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? I said to myself, I still have my license. So I said, well, I'm going to get back into chiropractic. A few things happened at that time, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and get back into chiropractic. But this time, I'm going to do it by sharing the truth, what I know to be the truth of chiropractic, in that the chiropractic adjustment actually has an effect on the brain and nervous system. And so I opened up my practice again, focused on that, and my practice just exploded. I mean, it just like took off. So many people out there are looking for answers to their health issues because they know medication isn't the answer. And when I started actually explaining the truth of chiropractic, people were like, oh my gosh, that's what I need. That's what I've been looking for. But I didn't know chiropractic was about that. They thought that chiropractic was about neck and low back pain. And so that just built the practice. And that was about 7 years ago. And I've been gung-ho ever since.
Yeah, I know. I watched some of your other interviews. Basically, you got discouraged because everybody just thought it was about low back pain. That's part of the reason why I decided to distance myself from that as well. But the brain is such a beautiful thing, and there's so much research being shown that when you affect the neurology further down the line, meaning the spine, or what it should be called, instead of the spinal cord, it should be called the brainal cord, because it's still encapsulated within the same sheath, anatomically speaking, as where the brain is. Can you tell us a little bit about, or what you've studied basically, that shows that how affecting the spine leads to positive changes all the way up to the brain, and how that can transform people's lives?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. Basically the spinal cord is just a tail from the brain. I mean, basically that's what we're talking about. What happens is when a chiropractic adjustment is done on the spine, the communication to the brain is so intense and so quick that it actually affects what's called the prefrontal cortex of the brain. Now, this is the area of the brain that allows us to determine what's dangerous and what's not dangerous. So, for example, our initial instinct with pretty much everything that happens in our life is danger, danger, danger. So our first instinct is to protect ourselves from danger. So we move into what's called a fight or flight tendency. It's the sympathetic dominant nervous system, or sympathetic side of the nervous system. Yeah, and so we move into the stress response. And then within an instant, the prefrontal cortex comes in and says, hey, wait a second, this is not dangerous. We're okay, we can relax. And so then we move into what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our also known as rest and digest, or relaxation or healing part of our nervous system. But what happens is when we're stressed out, especially nowadays, right, we're all stressed to a certain extent, that limits our brain's ability, the prefrontal cortex ability, to determine whether or not we're in a dangerous situation or not. And so what happens is we end up more on the sympathetic dominant side, the stress side of our nervous system is functioning at that level, which affects our health. It sends chemicals out to the body that causes our heart rate to increase, our blood pressure to increase. It lowers our ability to reproduce. It lowers our ability for digestion. So that's the start of all these chronic diseases. In fact, if you go to Johns Hopkins did research a few years back, and they said basically 8 out of 10 visits to a doctor are because of stress-related issues that have turned into physical symptoms and physical distress and physical disease processes. We've got other experts in the field that state that 90 to 95% of all chronic disease processes are due to stress. It all comes down to stress. The brain controls everything in your entire, if you ask a fourth grader what controls everything in your entire body, they're going to come back and they're going to say the brain. The brain controls and coordinates everything in your entire body. and it was there to develop everything before you were born. If it developed everything before you were born, and now it controls and coordinates everything in your entire body, why do we get sick? It makes no sense, right? Because our brain is there to make sure that we're healthy. When we have too much stress, the brain can't do what it needs to do. It can't communicate properly, and that leads to disease process.
Yeah, and I focus a lot on like optimizing the brain, like through many different ways. And like one of my most favorite modalities is with getting chiropractic care, even on myself. So that's radically changed my life, because I used to get migraines all the time, and I tried everything. It was so bad that I used to have to like pill pop, like have to take a pill all the time. Once I got into like really good, solid chiropractic care, like that changed. So like I'm a huge advocate of that, changing things up, fixing it, not through a chemical means, but through a physical means, because oftentimes it's a physical problem. So, and I know so this is getting into the 3 T's, right? So can you explain to people how the distortions happen in people's spines using the 3 T's?
The way this happens is this. We're talking about the 3 T's that chiropractors have been talking about for over 100 years now. We're talking traumatic stress. We're talking chemical stress or toxins. And then we're talking emotional stress or thoughts. So we've got toxins, thoughts, trauma. So for an example, a traumatic event or traumatic stress would be like a car accident, a fall that someone took, passing through the birth canal. You know how much stress is on the cervical spine and the neck as a baby passes through the birth canal, as a doctor has to reach in there and pull that baby out, especially if you use forceps or suction. Like that is hugely traumatic. But in addition, physical trauma also includes staring in front of a computer 8 hours a day, or these things right here that we have, staring at a phone all day with your head forward. That's physically traumatic. Not moving your body properly is physically traumatic to the brain and nervous system. That's the first stressor. The second stressor is chemical trauma. How many are taking medications? Medication is not a natural substance that the body is used to. It's actually toxic to the body. How about too much alcohol? Has anyone ever drank too much alcohol? Has anyone eaten too much processed foods? Too many GMOs, too much sugar. Like these are all chemical toxins that enter our body, that add stress to our brain and nervous system. And then the most powerful stressor is emotional stress, because this is at the subconscious level all the time. We're always having thoughts in our mind that are causing some level of stress, whether it's chemical stress, whether it's earlier you had a gentleman going through a divorce process. Like that's stressful. Losing a loved one is stressful. A relationship issue is stressful. Financial issues are stressful. These are thoughts that we have on our mind on a regular basis. And so when these stressors accumulate, then what happens, again, it affects the prefrontal cortex of our brain, and it actually shrinks that part of the brain. It shrinks the prefrontal cortex of the brain. What happens is now it can't tell the limbic system, which is the emergency part of our brain to keep us alive, which is very important. But
yeah, absolutely.
When we're trying to escape a burning building, that's super important. But when we're trying to sleep, we don't want that. But that's what we get because the prefrontal cortex can't control where you're moving. And so this starts a pattern. Okay? And this pattern usually starts in the first 7 years of life. And then what happens is those stressors then later on in life just exacerbate that pattern. And so what you need is something called a pattern interrupt, right? You need to break that pattern. And the chiropractic adjustment is one of the most effective ways of breaking that pattern.
Yeah, and I love how you bring up the whole package, because I've noticed some things in my life where it'll throw me out of alignment as well. So some of these things are things that people wouldn't even think about. So like I recently discovered that like gluten is one that does that for me. Stress that's always the obvious. And like the way you sleep can also affect that too. So there's a whole plethora of ways that your body will misalign, and it's almost like a circuit break. It'll misalign sometimes if it's just overwhelmed with stress, whether it's physical, chemical, or it's like thoughts, traumas, toxins. If those three things happen, your body will kind of circuit break, and then it'll be misaligned essentially. And so like that's why I love the different modalities of body work, like chiropractic and other things that actually help bring that back into alignment. But there's none that is as specific as chiropractic. All the other ones like manipulation, all that type of stuff, that's very general and that's kind of hit or miss. I love the specificity of what this does. So tell us a little bit about what changes you've seen in people, how you've seen them before and then after using the neuroinfinity and measuring their brain activity. What have you seen?
What you're talking about, you're talking massage therapy, you're talking manipulation, things like that. And even chiropractic adjustments to a certain extent may not be accurate for some people. So that's why it's important that we measure brainwave activity. We need to know what pattern they're in. Some people may come in, they may be totally sympathetic dominant, but on the other hand, we may have people come in that are parasympathetic dominant, believe it or not, that are sleepwalking through life. They have no idea. They've been like this since they were a kid. I did an interview with a gentleman the other day. He's a chiropractor. The first time he got adjusted, he thought, what the heck? Like he had ADD, ADHD. He was having a hard time in school. He got adjusted and he noticed a little bit of improvement, right? He noticed he could focus a little bit better. And so he's moving along this way. We did a brain scan on him using the NeuroInfinity, and we showed that his theta levels, which are like almost between a deep sleep and a light sleep, right? The theta waves were super dominant, which means basically he's sleepwalking through life.
Literally,
like,
yeah.
Literally. The doctor that tested him said, "Did you drive here? Like, how did you drive here?" He had been getting adjusted for years, but the wrong way. Even though he was seeing some effect, he was seeing some benefits. Once we did this test and we adjusted him the right way, he said immediately he got up and he like all of a sudden like blues were like super blue, greens were like super green. He looked around and he's, oh my gosh, like I'm standing in this room and like I am totally present. He knew the difference right then. And so going back to what you said about, like if you sleep wrong or if you have gluten, like he had no idea that was happening. And then after he got the right type of adjustment, now he knows. He knows when he goes from this level down to this level when he's not functioning. If he doesn't get enough sleep, if he doesn't drink enough water, if he doesn't move his body properly, he knows now how that feels, and he starts coming down. And he knows he needs to get his adjustment. He needs to get back in a sleep schedule. He needs to drink his water. And so that was a huge difference for him. And we see all kinds of things like that. We had a lady that came in with Crohn's disease. And if you're familiar with Crohn's disease, anyone listening, that this is a 21-year-old girl with Crohn's disease that's looking at a lifetime of pain, medication, probably surgery at some point to remove parts of her intestines, if not her whole intestine, because it's going to continue to get worse. What this is an abnormal stress response to chronic stress, right? The digestive system isn't functioning like it should. It starts to degenerate and starts to decay, basically. And so we started adjusting her. Within 3 months, she's going to her doctor for regular blood checkups. Within the 3rd month, her doctor says, something's wrong. We got to redo this test. And they redid the test. The exact same results came back, and he said, "I don't know what happened, but your Crohn's disease is gone." And he says, went into remission, right? A spontaneous remission. And now this girl is like, she's running marathons. She's a bodybuilder. She never would have been able to do that stuff before. Like this is how powerful chiropractic is, and how powerful your brain is when it's functioning the right way. You have a totally different life. Totally different life.
Absolutely. That's very true, because I remember like back when, before I just, discovered chiropractic in general, or even when I was a chiropractic student, before I actually got into regular care, it was like I would hit a certain plateau like around 5 p.m. and then I would just crash. That's it. My day was done. My migraine just took over and I just couldn't do anything anymore. Thank God, like, after maybe like 2 years of getting regular care, I don't have that problem anymore, like at all. So I can function perfectly. I can just keep going. I can work, I can travel, I can literally make my dreams come true, but it wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for taking that step in my life. So anyone that's here, if you guys have never tried any sort of like healing modality that is like chiropractic, I would highly encourage you to do that. NeuroHealing, which is what I do, has roots in the chiropractic philosophy, so I really love that. And just the same point is to optimize your body, your health, but especially your mind. A lot of the things that we teach in AQ, adaptive intelligence, is to optimize your mind. That I always hit the mind in every single way that I can, because it's made such a huge difference in my life, and I've used multiple different modalities to keep optimizing it to the next level. And I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at today if I didn't take every single step. And that's what I help teach people to do, is to keep taking that ladder all the way up. So what are some other things that you've used, maybe besides chiropractic, that have given you similar results, like have helped you optimize your mind as well?
Well, it all comes down to the chiropractic lifestyle that I call it anyway, the chiropractic lifestyle, and that is reducing the 3 T's. I mean, first you got to break that pattern. You got to cause a pattern interrupt, right? And then you got to retrain the brain. So you do that through biofeedback, through neurofeedback, and there's a 20-minute window after the adjustment. There's approximately 20 minutes that we know for sure, maybe longer, but we know for sure it's at least 20 minutes that your brain is like totally open to transforming and changing that pattern, right? And so that's where this training has to come in. Then in addition, you've got to reduce these stressors, especially once you get to that level that like you're functioning at an optimum, and you start eating gluten, or you don't drink enough water, or you have too much alcohol, and you start noticing your system coming down. It's going to be different for everyone. Okay, it's not going to be the same for everyone, but you've got to learn, how to control your mindset so that you can reduce the amount. I mean, stress is all around us forever, right? It's going to be there till the day we die. We have to learn how to use it to our advantage, and we have to learn how to deal with it, right? And so we've got to learn how to train our mind. We've got to learn how to eat properly for our brainwave activity, right? Because those patterns that we developed up until we were 7, we're always going to have tendency to go back to those patterns. Okay. Even if you're 80, 90 years old, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're going to have tendency to go back to those patterns. So what was that pattern to begin with? And what kind of foods should you be eating to help nourish that pattern that you should be at, so you don't go back to that old pattern? And for some people, that's, that may be a vegan diet, maybe a whole food plant-based diet. Some people, it's a high protein diet. And that's why all these diets work, but not for everyone. The bottom line is, though, we got to get off standard American diet for sure.
Right. And I actually created a whole list of things that I call brain foods. So I'm actually going to link that in the description for all of you guys. I created a whole document on what you should eat, foods that actually were shown by science, by nutritional science, to basically make you smarter. One of my favorites is blueberries. There's the whole list. And then also the things to avoid, which actually does the opposite. So I'll be linking that in the video description as well. So look out for that as well if you guys are watching on YouTube. But what are some of your favorite brain foods?
Well, I just want to preface this, and I love that you put that together. But when we're talking about brainwave activity, we're talking about these patterns. If we have someone who's in a hyperactive state, that's their normal pattern, they are not going to have the same diet as someone who's walking around in a high theta state or a high parasympathetic. Someone who's more prone to depression is going to eat more foods that are high in serotonin. They're going to help produce serotonin. So, to a certain extent, I 100% agree with you. But it can get even more fine-tuned than that if you know what your patterns are. Absolutely. Absolutely love blueberries. I love, salmon obviously is great, especially, fresh salmon, not farm raised salmon.
Yeah. For the vegans, it's chia seeds. Those are really good with omega-3s, proteins, like any kind of bean, basically.
Yeah, chia seeds. I love greens, spinach. I make a lot of stuff like that. I'm big into vegetables. I'm big into the research that showed that 800 grams of vegetables a day decreases your risk of all kinds of chronic disease processes. So I'm big into that.
Awesome, I love it. What's something that you would recommend everybody try at least once in their life, as far as when they finally get to that point of health, right? Because first you got to make the switch. And then when you get what you wanted, then what do you do? Like, what do you recommend people do with their health? Like, what is something that you've done that you've wouldn't be able to achieve if you didn't have your health.
Enjoy your life, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
My sister turned 50 last year, so we went skydiving, which is pretty cool. That was the second time, but she was ecstatic. She loved that. I love adventure. Like, I love going. We just got back from Virgin Islands. You know, my sons are 27 and 20 years old. We climbed one of the highest mountains on the Virgin Islands. I was able to keep up with them the whole time. You know, they kept turning around. You okay, Dad? You coming? I'm right here, man. What are you talking about, right? If I didn't have my health, I wouldn't have been able to do that. You know, we got to the top of the mountain. We took a selfie, you know, with this amazing ocean in the background with the blue water. You know, you see the blue and green water around the Virgin Islands, and we took a selfie like that. My mom is 74 years old, and we still go on like 4 and 5 day trips together. Like, I'm still taking her around the United States. She wants to see things because she still has her health. She gets adjusted on a weekly basis. She eats properly. She walks on a regular basis. These are the things that we talk about with people. You know, when I'm doing workshops and stuff, how many people want to live to be 100? Most people don't raise their hand. And that shocked me the first couple of times. And I said, well, why not? They say, well, you know, I see how my grandparents were when they were 80 or 90, or I see how my mom is. She's 80 years old and she's losing her memory, and she has to be taken care of, and she has to, you know, she's using a walker to get around, and like, it's sad, right?
Yeah.
So heading down that path, do you want to have a healthy path, or do you want to be in a path where someone's taking care of you and you don't know what's going on in your life, and you can't remember anything and you can't enjoy your life? Like, what's the point, right?
Yeah,
so,
basically, like, do you want to retire in a nursing home, or do you want to retire on a cruise? You know, like, this is the difference. This is the difference.
One of my favorite quotes is, the goal is to die young as late as possible.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So what are some places that you've traveled to? Because I know you're a traveler. I'm traveling as well. I'm now in Mexico, which I'm getting things set up for the healing retreats that we do. What are some of your favorite destinations of choice?
Well, my wife and I love St. John. That's where we just came from. We took our kids down there. We had 11 of us went down. That was our second time being there. I haven't been overseas. We actually had a trip planned with our moms to go to Italy right when COVID hit. So obviously that's been postponed. Going there. Really, I've been asked to come out to Australia and speak at some conferences there. So I'm looking forward to going out there. So I've mainly just been to Mexico, Canada, and the United States, so North America. But I love Mexico. I love some places in Canada. We've been up to Toronto. I love Toronto, especially in the summertime. Now Maine is awesome in the summertime. And then wintertime, we love going down to Florida, southern Florida, you know, California. We just got back from San Francisco. If you've never been down the Pacific Coast Highway, it is amazing.
It's the best view I've ever seen in my life. That's why I love living in California. It's so hard to leave California. San
Francisco South. Like, my wife, I don't know how many times she said I had to pull over so she could take pictures. It was unbelievable, man. So
yeah. Awesome. I wonder how that's going to stack up with Italy when I go, because and one thing that you did mention, you mentioned the disease. So one other thing that we should talk about too is, how does living this kind of lifestyle affect your health? How does it affect your immune system?
There was an article that came out just a few weeks ago by the medical community, believe it or not, that said the severity of COVID is based on the ability for your autonomic nervous system to function properly. Now, for those that don't know what the autonomic nervous system is, it's the part of your nervous system that tells your body and your brain whether to move to a sympathetic state or the parasympathetic state. And so the idea behind this is, when you're under stress, you move to a sympathetic dominant side. It's for danger. It's to get you through a crisis, and then
fight or flight, basically.
Fight or flight. So once that's done, then you become what's called adaptable. You rise to the occasion of the stress, and then you move down once the stress is gone, so that you're down here in your rest and relaxation and your healing part, your parasympathetic nervous system. The problem is this: when the autonomic nervous system doesn't know, and part of the autonomic nervous system is your prefrontal cortex that I talked about earlier. If it doesn't know what's dangerous and not, you can't move from a stressful situation to a non-stressful situation in your nervous system. That's when you have problems. Okay, basically it's your survival value. If you cannot adapt from stress to non-stress, then you're constantly in the stress, fight or flight area. And this is what's causing problems with COVID-19. If anyone's heard of cytokines, like a cytokine storm, basically this is what's happening. Is you're in this fight or flight, you're not able to come down off that. And so when you first go into a stressful situation, you have a cytokine storm. Your body produces all these chemicals to fight off any kind of disease, like that's not a disease, but like a chemical that's going to be into your body, right? So it like boosts it up mega amount, but it's not meant to stay there for a long period of time. It's meant to come back down and relax, and then that cytokine storm goes away. What's happening is people are going into this cytokine storm and it's not leaving. And so what happens then is all of a sudden now the blood's not getting oxygen like it should. That's what they're dying from.
Yeah. And, we have to keep in mind that our neurology controls our immune system.
Absolutely.
And, when you're in a situation where you're in the stress response, the fight or flight, the sympathetic, your immune system function just crashes. It basically like just turns it off. But when you're in the rest, relax, and heal mode, parasympathetic, now all that activity heightens, and now your immune system and your brain function is optimal. So, I highly recommend, especially now with all the craziness going on, this is the time especially to get this kind of healing work done. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, what happens is this, is people, I think people are under the assumption, I know this is true because people have told me, that they're healthy because they have their medication and they think their symptoms are under control. So people think they're healthy because their symptoms are under control because they're on a medication, when actually the underlying cause is still happening. And so these underlying causes can be something as simple as not sleeping properly to something as severe as cancer, are all signs that your survival value is going down, your adaptability is going down. And so it might start as something as simple as not being able to sleep properly, or some heartburn that's going on, or a little bit of high blood pressure that people think, oh, it's no big deal. What happens is that's the first sign, and gradually as that increases and increases, then that turns into more problems, heart disease, turns into more problems like cancer, and the longer that goes, the more severe the chronic disease process happens. So we hear about these people that say, well, the morbidity rate, is based on comorbidities and things like that. But the truth is this, even if people didn't have, high blood pressure that they knew of or digestive problem that they knew of, their nervous system still might not being able to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic that well. And that's what caused them. I hear the story about the 25-year-old bodybuilder that died of COVID that basically seemed healthy. But we have no idea if he was healthy because we don't know what his nervous system was doing. And so that's why it's so important, especially with the neuroinfinity, to be able to measure this stuff. Like we can tell based on brainwave activity, your measurements on how well you're going to be able to do if you do get COVID. And then we can take the necessary steps to fix that as quickly as possible. And not just if you get COVID, but to prevent yourself from even getting it in the first place, because your natural immunity can kick in and kill it before it infects you. So that's very important to also know. I know another thing too, relating back to how we were talking about diet. If you don't have enough healthy sugars in your blood system in your body, you can't fight off anything because your immune system relies on those healthy sugars to basically combat. So these diets like strict Atkins diet and like no carb diets, that can be dangerous. Maybe you'll lose a little bit of weight, but you're more likely to crash your immune system. So you got to be very careful with that. I'm not really a proponent of that. I tried that before and I kept getting sick over and over and over again. So I don't recommend no carb or low carb. I actually went the other way, high carb, low fat vegan diet has helped me the most. So if you haven't tried that, give that a try. And it not only does it give you a better immune system, and it actually clears up your mind. So brain fog goes away. You start to feed the good bacteria in your gut. And that bacteria is what produces serotonin. So you'll feel happier and your whole life will change. Actually, one of the first things I found before finding chiropractic was nutrition. And that was the first love. And then I found chiropractic. So on top of that, and then all these other things that I kept adding on top. So now it's like a whole package. So that's what I'm always excited to share with people. And that's what I do at the healing retreats. That's what I teach. So I'm sure you incorporate elements of that as well in your practice, right? Tell us a little bit about your practice. Yeah. So basically what I do is I focus on the chiropractic adjustment, focus on the brain and nervous system. And then to add to the chiropractic adjustment, I provide home-based exercise programs, based on, again, their brain activity. If someone comes in and they're already hyperactive and they've got a overstressed immune system, I don't want to do high-intensity interval training with them. I'm going to put them on a yoga and stretching program. But if someone comes in and they're parasympathetic dominant, and they're basically sleepwalking. I want to increase that, so I'm going to put them on a high intensity interval training program. So, I base it on my assessment based on what I found in the NeuroInfinity. It may include balance exercise, agility exercise, exercises that are important for the brain. So many people out there, they think that all they need is cardiovascular exercise or strength training, or maybe a combination of the two. The fact is, yes, they're both important. However, balance training is super important for the brain. Most people have no idea. They have no idea to do balance training. How about agility training? Simple movements from left to right without looking down at your feet build proprioceptive communication with the brain that is super important for brain health. How about stretching? Okay, stretching. There's so much research out there about stretching and how it helps benefit the brain and the nervous system. So these are types of things. And then we've got meal plans in there as well that we do with patients, again, based on their brain activity. I may put them on a whole food plant-based program. I may put them on just real food, what I call real food, real health. Just depends on what's showing up. And then we put them on mindset relaxation exercises, mindset training exercises. We make sure they're drinking enough water, which is very important. We talk about sleep, making sure they're getting enough sleep. They're on a good sleep schedule, like all this stuff. How about giving back, okay, to the community, right? If you look at blue zones, you're familiar with blue zones, right? I'm guessing most of your listeners are.
Well, maybe not all of them, but go ahead and explain it for all the people on YouTube.
Blue zones are areas in the world that have been studied where people live to be 100. They live to be like 100, 105, 110 years old, and they have no disease, right? They have no Alzheimer's. They're able to still function. They're still out working in their field. They're still congregating with their friends and neighbors at 100, 105 years old, right? And they're functioning. So these are blue zones. They're all over the world. And what they found in these blue zone areas is there's certain lifestyle traits that they follow. And one of the major ones is being social and giving back to your community and helping others. That's huge for brain health. Okay. So these are things that we incorporate into our practice.
Yeah, and that's part of what we teach as well. Is like, don't just feed your body and mind, but also feed your soul, and that's giving back is part of that, feeding your soul. And there's like an enormous benefit, not just health wise, to the meaning of your life, to be able to do that. And brain will thank you. It'll release all oxytocin and all these nice little chemicals, but you'll also be living a life worth living as well. So can you tell us more about some of the metrics that you look for? Because I'm not sure exactly, other than brainwaves, what the NeuroInfinity measures, but I know another good one is HRV. So basically HRV, what that does is heart rate variability. It measures how quickly your heart can adapt, essentially, and how quickly it is able to adapt is how adaptive you are or how healthy you are. Do you use that in your clinic as well?
Yeah, so the NeuroInfinity measures 7 areas. So it measures the results, the limbic system, it's called. So the limbic system is kind of like a symptom. It's not really a symptom, but it's a result of how well your brain is working. But you don't actually know what's going on with the brain. And you use HRV for that. That's one thing that you can use, and the NeuroInfinity measures that. We also use heart rate. We use respiratory rate. We use skin conductance, and we use temperature. And then we also use EMG for the traps. So what your muscles are doing. Are they too tense, especially in the traps? Because when you're in sympathetic dominant, what happens is your shoulders raise up. So when people notice that they're too stressed, the reason you're too stressed is because your traps are bringing your shoulders up to try to protect your upper cervical spine, which is where your brain stem lives, right there, which is super important. So what it does, it's a protective measure to try to bring that up. So when people are stressed, they have tendency to do that. And so we measure that muscle activity as well on both sides. So those are all components of results of how well your body is adapting, right? It doesn't actually tell you what the brain is actually doing. So we have some guidance there to a certain extent, but again, we don't know exactly what the brain is doing yet until we actually measure the brainwave activity, and there it is. So we measure all that stuff together, and then when we go and we find what the problem is with the brainwave activity, then what we do is we use those components to then retrain the brain, okay, through biofeedback. And I think that's what you were talking about the other day with the Muse, is you can do that through proper breathing techniques, or you can use temperature. You can use skin conductance to actually measure how well you're doing. You focus your brain on changing the temperature, for example, in your fingers. Like, it's amazing the stuff that your brain can do when you set out to do certain things. And so you retrain your brain, especially right after the adjustment, those 20 minutes, because your brain is wide open into learning new things. And that's why it's so important that 20 minutes is when we do most of the retraining of the brain, so that we can retrain the brainwave activity. And reset
absolutely. Yeah. And we see the same, like when we do NeuroHealing, we see the same 20-minute window of like heightened super learning, right? And that's how you know it's working, essentially. And you know, that helps you learn all the things that you maybe had missed out on. So that's what we also teach as well. Like, so like while somebody's in that state, we'll give them something positive to be able to focus on and be like, oh, am I really applying this in my life? Like, and that's why we have all the YouTube content as well. And so what are some of the things, lessons that you've learned in, you know, your heightened states that have helped change your life?
You know, that the universe gives you everything you need, man. Like when I'm in my heightened state and I put a question out to the universe, and boom, it gives me the answer, man. What do you call it, God? What do you call it, the universe? Whatever you call it. Like, when you're in that state, it is amazing what comes to you. And so I think that's one of the most important things is, you know, I grew up as a Christian, and one of the things we always learn is God is always with us, right? And so whether you call it God or whether you call it the universe, always there, right? It always wants what's best for you, but you've got to be open to receiving. You've got to be open to learning from it, and you've got to be open to taking it in and then using it. That's the next thing, is using it. So
absolutely.
Probably like one of the most important things.
Absolutely. It is. And I think that's a perfect way to end our interview, because that's the reason why I got into this, of all of healing, right? It's to help reconnect you with yourself and with the higher version of yourself, right? Or the higher version of whatever's out there, right? And the perfect way to do that, you know, we have to understand that the neurology, the brain, that is the bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world. So when you optimize that, now you get to see all the things that you had missed out on, all the things that you didn't notice, and all the meaning that is associated with being alive on this beautiful earth and sharing all your gifts and talent. So thank you so much, Clint. And I would like to transition to our group discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my shoulders aren't doing this. I was wondering why my shoulders always come up like that. I learned that today. That was huge. I always wondered why. So you taught me that. That was good. You're a wealth of knowledge. I enjoy learning from you.
Thank you,
I did have a question for you. You were telling a story about how a guy was getting adjustments and you came over, you did it the right way. And I'm curious, what's the difference between, because I've received chiropractic work for a long time, what's the difference between the right way and the wrong way?
Well, again, it comes down to the type of brainwave activity that you have going on, the pattern that you're in. So, for example, he was parasympathetic dominant. He was walking around in a sleepwalking state, basically. So his nervous system needed to be excited. It needed to be like, you know, there's different types.
All right. So now we're back here and we're live. If you guys are on YouTube or you're on Facebook, feel free to join us. We're on Discord. So you can follow our hub link and you'll see Discord. You can just jump in and we'll continue the talk together. And or otherwise, we'll see you next week. So we're going to go ahead and transition into our private discussion. So again, if you'd like to be a part of that, come on in. So many thanks, and we will see you all next week. Take care. Okay, Flor, puedes cortar la transmisión. All right, and so for everyone that's here, we'll have a talk about what